and welcome to Podtoid. We are your host. I'm CJ.
I'm Dan.
I'm Occams.
And this is episode 401. We are down 2 co-hosts today. Charlotte was having some computer issues, so she won't be joining us. And Chris is off doing something British, I assume. So he will be out for the day, but the show must go on. And we have a good one for you today. We're going to talk some games. We're going to go over this week's Sony State of Play presentation. And then after the show, stick around for another edition of Spoil Sport, where Dan and I are going to go over the new Detective Pikachu movie. Both of us saw that this weekend, and we're really just champing at the bit to talk about it. Right, Dan?
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of things to discuss.
Many notes. But before we get into games, I want to start us out, like I always do, with something completely unrelated. And for today's story, I want to know from you just how drunk this man was. So we go to Klamath Falls, Oregon, where police say Timothy Drennan called 911 to report that a man was trying to kill him with an axe. According to KOBI NBC News 5, Drennan didn't provide a lot of information and was threatening and rude to 911 dispatchers. When police were sent to the man's location, when they arrived, they found Drennan alone. Police could not locate the axe-wielding man and said Drennan continued to be combative once they did get to him. It was then Drennan altered his story just slightly to say that it actually wasn't a man attacking him with an axe. It was a Bigfoot. A Bigfoot was attacking him with an axe. So my question to you, how drunk was he?
Perfectly sober. Look, it was a ploy, because obviously when you call 911 saying Bigfoot is chasing me with an axe, there's no hang up. So he had to say it was a person to at least get the cops out there to witness the Bigfoot. Unfortunate for him, Bigfoot is a telepath, knew the cops were coming, and fled the scene, leaving him to look like a fool, and now we are shaming this man on the internet.
You know, for being a giant ape man, Bigfoot sure is elusive if he's real. I mean, you think we would have found him by now. If not just like a hiker going to some trails, then any number of the people who grow marijuana deep in the forests.
Somebody could have found bones by now. That's always the thing I always bring up.
Bones.
Where's the bones?
Yeah,
Where's
true.
the evidence? Like, somebody could have found this by now already.
I want to know what kind of axe Bigfoot uses. I really hope it's like the He-Man, like double-sided axe. You know?
It's
I'd imagine
Thor's
it's
axe
like
from
a
Endgame.
wood-carved axe of some kind. With like a stone or something. I don't know.
It's actually just Axe body spray, and this guy really didn't want to smell like that. So Drennan was taken into custody on the misuse of 911 and initiating a false report. The deputy DA told the press that upon subsequent investigation, there were no signs that a Sasquatch was present. It's so good that they had to add that. Adding, it doesn't appear as though there's any issue of mental health here. This was just strictly intoxication. So, like, hella drunk. Hella drunk. Like, have you, Occams, I assume you get drunk all the time. Have you ever imagined something as crazy as that while you were just completely inebriated?
No, I don't. Mostly just scream at video games when I'm that drunk. Not really. I don't really hallucinate. I've never drank enough to hallucinate, because at that point you've poisoned your body, which, I mean, that's what being drunk is. But there's levels to it. And I feel like that's like dead fraternity pledge drunk, you know?
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I know I've like made confessions when I was drunk, and I've definitely blacked out to where I can't remember. There's at least an hour of my life that I can't remember due to being blackout drunk, but never hallucination. And I don't think I would hallucinate Bigfoot, even if I did. And it would probably be the clown from It or something. Just oh well. Let's go ahead and get talking about games. And Occam's going to start with you. Something called Skyforge. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I don't. Man, I'm lost at sea for video games. It's like a free to play MMO type thing. I don't know. It's whatever. I'm playing as a cryomancer, so I'm like an ice wizard. Mm-hmm. The highlight of the game is that I made my character really tall and really skinny, except for having a rather large paunch, and he's dressed kind of like a businessman who just got off work, so his tie's a little loose, and he's got his suit jacket on. I have a beard. It's there. It's fine. I don't know. I'll just watch a lot of YouTube right now. I'm just kind of waiting for Rage to come out. Rage 2. I think that'll be fun. And guys, you should all watch Police Academy movies again. There's my gaming advice of the week. Watch all the Police Academy movies.
It's solid advice. For my part, I finally started getting in some decent time with Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. This is the recent release on the Switch. I've been playing mostly in portable mode where there's, the game runs really smoothly, but there's a lot of pop-in with the environment. And not so much that it's like detrimental to the experience, but it's definitely noticeable. So I am following your advice, Occams, and going with the Magic User. And I've been having a lot of fun with that so far. And I've seen some of the other games writers on sites like Waypoint, or I guess now they're Vice Games, now that they lost their branding. They've been posting little videos of their builds, and it's just, I can't wait to unlock some of the crazy shit that they're doing in the game, once I have time to actually really, really dig deep into it. But from the starting point, you have the opening mission that where you're with the little group of guys, and you're going to kill that, what is like a chimera with something else attached to it. And then you have the dragon attack your hometown. And I hate that RPGs do this, but can you please stop giving me a go collect some flowers as my first goddamn mission in a game? Like, this dragon just decimated my town. Apparently it took my heart, so I'm now heartless. I'm now a Kingdom Hearts character. And you want me to go collect flowers from some trees outside town? This is not the best use of my time. Like, go kill the goblins outside of town. Okay, I'll go do that. Go collect the flowers. And it's not even that I have to go collect flowers. It's that the person who gives me the mission doesn't know what they are, doesn't know where they are. So now I have to go talk to other people to go find out where these stupid flowers are. It's like, come on. This is some MMO bullshit.
It's a crutch for, I think it's RPGs in general, but certainly MMOs. That's the, like, go get the salve so we can start healing people. Like, no, what you should do is, your town was just destroyed. You get drunk. You go on a rage revenge mission. You find that goblin village in the forest, and like Anakin in the prequels, you murder every Tatooine baby you find.
Yeah, don't worry about flowers. Just pour some mead onto their wounds and get on with it. God.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that I really want to hear what you think later on when you unlock some of the bigger spells, because that I have very, very fond memories of just sitting back and casting and going through the motion of it while my party members sort of kept the creatures busy, and then just reveling in the sense of like power and scale that magic gives you. It's kind of similar to the games called Kessen, which were really big on the PlayStation 2. And then the second one added magic, and it was like tornadoes and meteors and fireballs. But the tornado was my favorite because it would kind of this cutscene, but it would pick up the guys and then the horses and their riders and everything. And it was really kind of rewarding, but also sad to watch a terrified horse fly through the sky. Like, you felt bad because it didn't choose to be there, but at the same time it was also kind of awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to getting some more of these advanced spells because, like you said, there's something like a power fantasy of having this much magic at your fingertips, and not many games really allow you to go ham with it. So I really want to, like, I've just seen some lightning storm summon, and it's just fucking amazing. I can't wait to do until I'm able to do all that. And I will say, when the game is docked, I think there's a little bit less pop in, but this is still a really beautiful game. Like, I know this is a PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era game, and it's still pretty. It's pretty. It's a very good looking game. And so. Yeah.
Yeah, and the kind of aesthetic of it definitely is it has that JRPG feeling at times, but it really has a firm like Western RPG visual kind of style.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I really liked. It was dark, and it was very unhappy and very kind of unpleasant, but it really felt like almost like a fairy tale come to life, but one of those dark ones where like someone loses a baby and it comes back as a thing,
Oh, so an actual fairy tale, not the Disneyfied versions of them.
Yeah.
Dan, you are still on that Sea of Thieves grind, right?
Yeah, on the topic of being lost at sea. Been there in Sea of Thieves, but the land crab returned now as the boiled crab
Mm-hmm.
with its captain, the punished crab. And I decked out my character to have a peg leg, a hook arm that I imagined he lost when he got boiled half to death. But anyways, we took our revenge on the citizens of Sea of Thieves by looting and robbing and sinking a great deal of ships and pissing off quite a lot of children, unfortunately. It's just how it goes. We also got sunk a few times, but we're not going to talk about that. That's non-canon. That's.
Was it a cannon that sunk you?
Yes.
Well, then it is
was
canon,
but it was non-canon. So, but yeah, Sea of Thieves has been great. We've been trying to do everything we can in terms of getting footage for the upcoming Impulse episode on that. The only thing we really have left to do now is kind of the new. I guess they sort of added a story to the game, but not really. It's just more or less like a major quest line you could do. The story is still pretty bare bones, as you're just kind of beating up skeletons a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And if I have any complaints, it tries to do that whole like raid boss thing where it's like, here's a boss that will take 30 minutes to kill. But the thing is, it's just a skeleton dude. So we have two ships like just firing cannons for 20 minutes at like this weird skeleton wizard thing. And I don't know, like that aspect of it is kind of boring. So
do you think people are still going to be around to play it once Ubisoft's Skull and Bones comes out?
I'd say yes, because I feel like that Skull and Bones thing looks more PvP focused, where this is maybe a little bit more varied.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sea of Thieves has a huge amount of like PvE content where you can just explore on your own and stuff.
And find different types of skeletons.
Sure. Like that is kind of like the crutch of this game is that like they've added a bunch of events and some new content in the form of like some new enemies like a Kraken and a Megalodon shark, but a lot of the content without context is still very much going to islands, digging up chests, and fighting skeletons, and worrying about other player ships.
It would be great if, like, the last day Sea of Thieves wasn't going to exist. Like, the final screen before the game ends was like, by the way, all the skeletons were black.
That'd be something.
So is Skull and Bones the, like, realistic looking one?
Yes. The one that's based off of the sailing from the Assassin's Creed series.
Oh, okay. See, I think pirates are boring, so I'm not immediately into that. But if they had like fantasy elements or doing some weird like water magic stuff, summon crabs and all, I'd try it out.
See, I think pirates are underutilized in the games industry. I think it's probably not as varied as you can do with just straight up fantasy, but something like the pirate motif and ancient Greece, I think those are just vastly underutilized in favor of just a standard Tolkien sword and shield fantasy.
Yeah, I'd agree. There's pretty big lack of decent pirate games, honestly.
When you say like ancient Greece, are you talking like the longboats and the soldiers kind of stuff, or what do you mean by that?
I mean stuff like Spartan Total Warrior, Greek gods, shit like that, where you have Cyclopses and all that fun stuff. Heracles and Hercules.
I would love to see like an action horror, it's kind of Dark Souls type game. I know I'm just throwing out words now, but bear with me. I'm shooting from the hip here.
A Dark Souls like.
Yeah, Dark Souls roguelite Metrovania. But it's essentially like nightmare creatures, old school game there. But instead of Aleister Crowley, it's Caligula, and it's set in Rome.
I'd play that.
Yeah.
So Dan, does Sea of Thieves have an end game to it?
Not really. Like pretty much everything you would do within maybe the first 2 hours is what you're going to be doing constantly. There's no real like end goal. Like it's weird. They have just a bunch of like the progression system is literally just tied to the various cosmetics you can earn. That's about it. Like you're just constantly doing this quest line or getting chests and redeeming them just to gain that in-game currency to eventually maybe put some cosmetics on your ship. That's really about it. And even after about a year now, it's still kind of lacking content and like any meaningful content. And that's kind of surprising to me.
You are listening to Podtoid.
Well, all right, that is it for games, but we do have some headlines to cover. It is time for the news. It's another light week, but there are a few big stories we can talk about, and we're going to start with something that was somewhat of a confusing story from earlier in the week about loot box legislation. Junior Senator Josh Hawley announced this week he plans to introduce legislation that may curb loot box and pay-to-win schemes in games aimed at kids. I would like to point out right now that there is no legislation has been formally introduced. Howley has merely said that he plans to do it. I know some websites were reporting that it was introduced. Some were saying that he planned it. Just nothing's been introduced yet as of the recording of this show. According to Howley, his bill will target games aimed at players under the age of 18 and, quote, games with wider audiences whose developers knowingly allow minors to engage in microtransactions. The bill, if it becomes law, and at least I think Occams and I know how bills become law thanks to cartoons, will prohibit what Howley believes are manipulative designs, including loot boxes and pay to win. And for pay to win, that includes paying for a competitive advantage against other players, or designing a game where you hit a difficulty wall to goad you into spending more money to proceed. The bill would give the Federal Trade Commission the power to deem titles with these elements as unfair trade practices and allow state attorneys general to file suit against game companies on behalf of their citizens. I'm going to ask you, and Dan, let's go ahead and start with you. Has the loot box problem gotten so bad that we now need kind of this federal legislation?
It is worrying because there is a part of me that like agrees that we should be trying to at least curb this stuff, but we as an industry should be trying to do it. But at the same time, you have the people who should be regulating this stuff, ESRB, defending it.
Yeah.
And now the government's stepping in. And it's like, how did we get to this point? Why did the ESRB act on this way sooner to prevent this? So, because I think government regulation is a very sketchy road to be going down. And like we as an industry should be trying to sort this out first ourselves before we let politicians decide this stuff.
Yeah, but the problem is that there's just so much fucking money in microtransactions.
That's the thing too, yeah. Like publishers that make bank on this, so they're going to fight hard against it. So
I think, and I may be wrong on this, but I think EA makes more money from little card packs in Madden than they do selling the Madden game.
Yeah, definitely. Like EA were so bold to even like break that one country's law or whatever and go against it and still attempt to sell their microtransactions until, they were told not to eventually.
Yeah, and like you said, it should be something that the ESRB or the ESA, which one is it? ESRB is the rating system.
Yeah, but even then, like they should still be putting some sort of rating in place talking about this.
No, absolutely.
Loot boxes. And I think they did to an extent, but nowhere near like the extent they should be.
Yeah.
And it's raising enough concern, obviously, with people that, it's going into the hands of the government now.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when video games become so prevalent in society, is that now governing bodies are going to take a much more strict look at them to see exactly what it is that we're doing. In the 90s, it was all about violence, but now it's all about gambling because, Howley shared stories, his target was Candy Crush and how there's a $149 quote micro transaction you can buy for that for coins or whatever the fuck they sell you in Candy Crush. But then you have these stories of kids taking their parents' credit card and getting $2,000 in charges for a single game for some fucking gotcha because they needed that one character. And it's not even kids; it's adults doing it too. So
no, I've read stories about people who knew they were addicted to the game so badly that they had to like contact like administrators and mods within the game to be like, you need to disable my ability to purchase stuff because I just can't stop.
Yeah.
And that stuff's worrying. And like I said, what's more worrying is the fact that it is going to be regulated potentially by a government body. And the thing is, regardless of where you stand on like the political side of things, both sides, in terms of like the left and the right, have it out for games big time.
Oh, definitely. That one California state senator who was sent to jail on weapons charges, he was a Democrat who was coming for GTA, and it turns out he was a real life GTA.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the one kind of quote in this that really throws up a warning flag is when he says games with wider audiences whose developers knowingly allow minors to engage in microtransactions. Like that's for example, that would be like a parent buying Mortal Kombat 11 for their kid and then blaming Warner Brothers for letting that kid play the game.
Yeah,
it's not the video game publisher's responsibility to make sure that games that are not intended for minors don't end up in the hands of minors. If this does pass, it's going to decimate the free-to-play mobile industry.
Absolutely. It'll it'll send like ripples across the world because, like I said, it's the country of the biggest market in the world when it comes to video games, at least outside of China.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect definitely that, like, pretty much everything.
Occams, do you have anything to add?
It's all white bullshit.
Okay. Our second story of the week is all about Sony. This week, the company held another State of Play stream. There were a few interesting titles revealed during it, including Predator Hunting Grounds, which is a competitive multiplayer game, the Riverbond cooperative dungeon crawler that I think has Shovel Knight as one of the characters, as well as release dates for Monster Hunter World Iceborne and Medieval. And boy, that Medieval trailer, that was not something they should have showed off.
Yeah, it looks pretty much just as janky as kind of the original game and nowhere near as polished in some areas. So it's a little bit worrying, but it is just maybe a trailer. Maybe it's still, being polished, but we can only hope for the best, I guess.
At the very least, hopefully they get that frame rate fixed.
Oh, yeah, the frame rate. When he's jumping around, it's rough.
I'm not a big Medieval fan, so I skipped that one. But I know people are excited about it, so I hope it fixes itself and gets better. And treating it like it's a living entity for some reason, I'm not sure. But
yeah, so that was that was the promised information from the State of Play. But obviously, the biggest part of the show was there was a new trailer for the Final Fantasy VII remake. It's been a minute since we've seen anything with the title, which was actually announced 4 years ago at E3. So we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary of its announcement. Back then, the game was revealed to be episodic in nature, and it appears that is still the case. The new trailer, like the last two, takes place entirely in Midgar during what appears to be the opening portion of the game. The looks of all the characters, including Cloud, Barrett, and Aerith, have been updated since their last appearance, as has the user interface. The combat is still action RPG design that was first revealed 4 years ago. No release date was announced, but there is more news coming next month, possibly at E3. There's a big question on when all of this is going to launch, and I honestly think that the first episode will make it onto the PlayStation 4 within the next 12 months. If Square Enix can successfully get its head out of its butt and launch Kingdom Hearts 3 after so many years of development, I'm pretty sure they'll be able to get at least one episode out the door as well. What do you guys think? Do you think like this is something they're going to be able to actually do in a timely manner, or is the scale of this remake something that is just biting off more than they can chew?
Well, like you said, it's been 4 years, and I imagine now that Kingdom Hearts 3 has been wrapped up, like all hands on deck are working on this now. So I think it's very possible that it'll release within maybe this year even, at least the first episode for the PS4.
Yeah.
And then with the rumors flying around about, PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility with upgraded support and stuff, I imagine they'll just it'll be a weird cross-gen thing for the later episodes.
Yeah, I definitely see it coming out in the next 12 months. If it doesn't seem impossible to me at all. And then definitely a PS5 thing. I mean, that would sell systems easily.
No, absolutely. And one of the things I keep reading about it is that each episode is going to be the length of a full game. So it's not going to be just them cutting up that game, but it's going to be cutting up the original game and then infusing more, characters, plot lines, quests. Even if it is cut up and episodic, the idea that each episode is going to be 30 hours is incredibly enticing for someone like me who I didn't play Final Fantasy VII when it originally released. I only played it about 3 or 4 years ago for the first time. And, I absolutely love the game, and I would love to see a much more fleshed out version of everything that is in there, especially, with how they've redesigned Midgar. What are they going to do with Gold Saucer? That's going to be amazing with modern hardware.
It's going to look like a Liberace's death dream.
They've been trying this for years to try and make a Final Fantasy VII extended sort of universe thing. Yeah, they did the prequel for the PSP. They did the movie, that weird sequel. They introduced a character called Genesis that's supposed to be the next big bad. So it wouldn't honestly shock me if they try and mix in a lot of those elements, including Genesis, into this game to pad that out, and it's basically it's spanned on that initial game.
I could see the Zack portion being a lot longer.
yeah, really. Definitely. I think that a city like Midgar has a lot more stories to tell. Mm-hmm. Even just the kind of the atmosphere, the kind of the environment of it. I could definitely see these episodes being something you could spend, it said 30 hours. I could say 60 or 70 if you really want to comb through it. I think the thing I'm most excited about, and this is just something I've always loved in Final Fantasy series, are the summons.
Mhm.
Like Knights of the Round is amongst my group of friends, Knights of the Round and Quad Magic meant we had time to go to and Mimic. We had time to go to Taco Bell and come back before it all finished, which we would do sometimes. And I want to see like on PS4, PS5 what Knights of the Round looks like, today.
Hell yeah. A lot of the combat reminds me of Final Fantasy 15 from what we've seen.
Yes.
And the summons of that were pretty spectacular. And I got a funny feeling
epic. Yeah.
if they are going to mimic Final Fantasy 15 down to combat, it wouldn't surprise me if they go with the same formula even for the summons as well. So
I mean, like, whoever's listening, if you haven't played 15 and think it's shit, that's more power to you. But look up just the summons for 15. Like Rama was, I think, the first one you get is Rama, and just that level of scale of like, oh fuck, man, this is so cool. Like now, and take that and put it to like all your favorite summons in 7, and I'm that's where my head is, and I'm so excited.
I'm really hoping the materia system returns as broken as it was, originally was.
Now, someone in the comments for that said that you could see the materia like set on his sword. And I didn't go check it or anything, but I can't imagine they'd remove that. That was such an intrinsic part of the game.
Yeah. Oh man, I now have to go back and watch that. I've been seeing a lot of people kind of debating on where each episode will cut out, and also how many episodes there will be. And kind of the big agreement or point that people are agreeing upon is that when Meteor is called, that's going to be a break of an episode. Like either that's going to be the end of the first one or end of the second one, and then everything after it's going to be third and fourth. So, a lot of questions that we still need to answer on this, and I don't think we're going to get all of them next month when they reveal more information. But I hope at the very least we'll get a release date and maybe just get an idea of just how many episodes and how big of a scale each episode's going to have. Because this is, I can't think of another title that is more anticipated than this one right now because of just how beloved the original is.
Yeah. I would be shocked if they didn't put a release date next month. If not day and time, at least, fall, spring, whatever.
Yeah.
I'd be very, very surprised.
Absolutely.
You are listening to Podtoid.
That is it for the news, but before we go, it is time for the Podtoid question of the week.
You ever got a female pregnant when you was like 7?
Sorry, that is not the Podtoid question of the week. This week's question actually has to do with the Final Fantasy VII remake. According to the game's director, each episode, like I said, is going to be about the size of a full-size game, so it's safe to assume it's going to include a lot more material that wasn't in the original release. It's getting the all-star treatment. Like, this is a AAA remake of a AAA game, and I just wanted to know from you guys, which classic game would you like to see get the same just gonzo remake treatment? And for me, I was thinking about this hard because, RPGs are probably the easiest one to say because, you look back to the early days of gaming and RPG was just, 8-bit and you kind of had to use your imagination to build everything. You no longer have to use your imagination to build anything because we have the technology to do it. But for me, my answer would be Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. I think that is a game that was definitely ahead of its time with the type of combat that was in it. The mixture of side-scrolling and overworld action was a lot of people didn't come around on it, but I think that one, you take that game story, that game's world, and you rebuild it with like the Breath of the Wild kind of graphics, you will get just one fucking amazing game out of it because those side-scrolling boss battles transformed into kind of 3D boss battles would be so fucking memorable. Just that final bout with Shadow Link. Oh God, I would love to see that on just modern hardware, modern specs, just balls to the wall, going all out on it.
So hear me out.
Okay.
The Sega logo flies by.
Oh God, Altered Beast.
You ruined it. What an Altered Beast for the new consoles. Altered Beast. That's the game starts. Fade to black, rise from your grave. Give it some like Soulsborne combat or something. I'd play it.
I'd
I'm not
see
letting
like
this go.
like Altered Beast, right? And just is like spray painted on the side of a van art concept shit that it is. Like, but have like Rockstar do it with like a Grand Theft Auto budget.
Well,
Just,
my
just
God.
see what they could do with it, you know? Like take this dumb, simple premise. Oh, that'd be amazing.
Just the best voice acting ever for the dumbest game.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fucking 35 hours of in-game cutscenes and dialogue and
all about this.
and for me, and my go-to is Shadow Hearts Covenant, but I've said that so many times for so many things, and I still fucking love that game. But thinking about it a little bit more, honestly, AAA Gonzo going crazy, sky's the limit. Rule of Rose.
Yeah. Oh God, you could do some. I started watching the that Let's Play channel you told me about that does the horror games, and I've made it through 2 videos for Rule of Rose, and man, just that game with a braver publisher behind it.
Yeah.
It is. My real answer would probably be Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Never ever. So.
Well, that's
fucking Konami.
Pour one out for Silent Hill. God. But I have my copy of Rule of Rose. I was looking at it a little while ago, actually thinking of booting it back up. But you hit it on the nail on the head with a braver publisher, because that's a real fucked up game, but it's so good. And it really, my favorite thing in gaming is when people they try to do something different, experiments, even if they fail. That's why I love the David Cage games, because they're just different, you know. And Rule of Rose really was something unique. And there's a couple of quality of life adjustments with the control scheme and a little bit of the camera stuff, and you could have a really, really interesting, uncomfortable game.
Parasite Eve would be cool too.
Yeah.
A lot of those good PlayStation 1 games, I'm sure we could just, Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger, just a lot of them could be ripe for a remake. But who knows how much money fucking Square Enix is spending on this Final Fantasy VII remake? Because I can't imagine this is going to be cheap.
No.
And it's funny because they probably could have got away just doing like a complete HD remake, but still have the same perspective as the original, and people still would have bought the shit out of it and been happy with it. But they had to take it that extra step to completely redesign the combat system, to redesign the perspective, to make it like a modern Final Fantasy game, which, Final Fantasy VII was kind of the pivot point to where we got now. And so, I mean, the only thing I can imagine that would be harder than, or more expensive, more time consuming than this would have been trying to, recreate fucking Final Fantasy VI with the same type of attention to detail.
Which would be, of course, the last game I would ever play.
Oh, God, yes.
I would just play that and be like, okay, well, can't do anything better than that. So I'm gonna, I don't know, go get a PhD in something and read books the rest of my life, because it's can't beat it.
We are just about out of time, but before we go, we do have a community shout out.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to our own Wesley Russo. He's doing that quick post about the comparing a portrait of yourself with a video game character, and I've seen some really, really great entries. I need to find one for myself, actually, and it's just a wonderful thing. I can't wait to see the inevitable article that comes from that, and it's pretty badass. So thank you very much for doing that, Wes.
Absolutely. That is it for the show. On behalf of Dan, Occams, and myself, thank you for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. And be sure to stay tuned, because we're about to start our Detective Pikachu Spoil Sport. Okay, so are we alone?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's time for Spoil Sport. Welcome to Spoil Sport, the Podtoid show within a show that is all about the movies. I am CJ.
I'm Dan.
And we are going to be talking about Detective Pikachu. Just came out this weekend. This is the third installment of the Spoil Sport segment. We have done Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame, and it's finally happening that we're able to talk about a video game movie, so we can kind of combine the shows. So Detective Pikachu opened worldwide this weekend. In North America, it opened to second place with roughly $58 million, which is the biggest opening ever for a video game movie. At least 20 of those dollars came from Dan and myself, because we both saw the film. So you ready to get into it?
Yeah, 10 Canadian for me, because I went to the cheapo mall theater, which was probably a mistake because it was full of kids and I got squeezed between two different families. So,
Oof. I was at the nice theater with reserved seating that reclines and, has cup holders and trays. I was squeezed between, like, the guy to my left fell asleep, and then the guy on my right was like I guess snuggling with his girlfriend, but he didn't realize that the armrest can be pulled up so you can actually like sit closer together. And so he was awkwardly just laying his body across this, what I assume is an extremely uncomfortable armrest to kind of like rest his head in her lap. It did not
very
look,
unfortunate.
yeah, it did not look like they were having a good time. But so let's get into this. Detective Pikachu is based off of the Nintendo 3DS game of the same name and stars Justice Smith as Tim Goodman, who teams up with Pikachu, voiced by Ryan Reynolds, to find Tim's missing dad. So at the start of the film, it's kind of surprising to me, at least, that the first Pokemon we see is Mewtwo. And he's in the facility being experimented on. There's a car chase with him and a crash. Then we jump over to Tim Goodman, who's with his friend Jack as they're trying to catch a Cubone. And this, after the car crash, this kind of whole opening scene right here, it's really good establishing of what Pokemon are like in the real world, and also it's a great representation of the Pokemon game into this movie.
Yeah, definitely. The world building in general is fantastic. But I made notes. I brought a notebook to the theater, and literally the first note I have is, did Mewtwo just kill somebody?
Yeah, that was a little violent scene for a movie that is parental guidance suggested.
Yeah, it was something.
Yeah. So there is the car crash, and it's a little confusing as to what's going on, and who knows how many scientists he also took out when he exploded the laboratory.
Yeah.
But so, Tim, he goes to catch the Cubone, doesn't catch it. Cubone attacks him, which I thought was like, boy, that is one powerful Pokemon. But then he gets a phone call saying his dad died in the crash, and he goes to Rhyme City to claim his stuff and return home. And now Rhyme City is a city where Pokemon and people live side by side. And I gotta say, just him walking around the city on his way to the police station was mesmerizing.
It was so good.
There's something arresting about seeing all of these Pokemon and what they look like in real life. Unlike the Sonic movie trailer, these all look like their digital counterparts.
Yeah. I didn't expect to think this, but after seeing all the trailers over the course of these coming months, and then finally seeing the movie, it weirdly looked natural too. Like they looked like they belonged in this world, as maybe as a bit of a reach as that is. I don't know. By the end of that movie, like it was kind of believable to me in that sense.
Yeah.
And when I look at Sonic, there is always that weird permanent disconnect that should not be there always.
Oh God, yes. It gets especially true to that when you see kind of the Pokemon that maybe are not so much well known, just how well that they blend into the environment, how natural they kind of look there. And I think that's really on the filmmakers for bringing in, that Twitter artist who did the realistic Pokemon renders to help with the art direction of this game, because, going back to the Sonic movie, that is not something that really looks like Sonic. It has the basic idea of Sonic, but it doesn't have the look down, whereas every single Pokemon in this movie is perfect. It is absolute perfect representation of its video game character.
Yeah, like seeing Machamp be like the crosswalk thing was pretty great.
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, I'm gonna have to watch this on Blu-ray just to see how many Pokemon are in that opening sequence of him in Rhyme City.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just because there's so many.
It's one of the movies that you'll be able to like pause and like be able to just discover new things every time. So
yeah, I mean, it's like a Ready Player One, but not feeling so forced with all the references.
And yeah, that is like the other thing too. Is I thought it would be like heavily like on the Gen 1 Pokemon train for the most part, and I was totally wrong about that. There are all kinds of Pokemon in this movie from like all generations.
So Tim arrives in the city. He goes to his dad's apartment and kind of sheds a tear because of his mom has passed and now his dad's dead. And then he meets his dad's partner, Pikachu. He also meets reporter in training Lucy Stevens, who's played by Catherine Newton. And I had to keep reminding myself that this movie is rated PG because every time she is on screen, she seriously is playing the part like she's acting in a 90s Nickelodeon show. I don't know.
She had
She
some like Disney Channel quality level of acting, but I still liked her character and everything. So
yeah, she had a good character, and I really like that they gave her the Psyduck as
the
her
side up just really good.
as her partner Pokemon, because it's unexpected. Like you would expect if it was anyone else, they would be like, here's your Jigglypuff or your Eevee or any of these other really well known Pokemon. But no, they gave her the Psyduck. I don't know if it's like that in the Detective Pikachu game, but I just thought it was a weird choice that definitely pays off towards the end. But yeah, I liked her character. I don't know if I necessarily enjoyed her interpretation of it. So he meets his dad's partner Pikachu, and he in the midst of investigating his dad's house, he finds this green or purple substance, kind of breathes it in, and then he finds he can talk to the Pikachu, although he's not. We come to find out that's not and it has anything to do with the purple substance, but he can talk to the Pikachu. Again, played by Ryan Reynolds, who's really affable in this role. I think he was really good casting. He's generally good casting in most anything that he can be funny in. So, just the opening bits with him when they're running away from all of those
The napalms,
yeah. Thank you. I wrote down monkey Pokemon because I couldn't find what they were called. And the scene and then the marketplace where he's just like Pika Pika and no one can understand him. Then they getting all the coffee and him being addicted to caffeine. I just thought it was all really good characterization.
During that segment, they made a cocaine joke, which caught me off guard. Like I was chuckling a lot in this movie, a lot more than I thought.
Yes,
the writing is great. Like it's genuinely pretty good writing in this movie in terms of like a wide variety of humor for both kids and older people alike. So
I mean, it's definitely this is a movie aimed at kids, but I don't think it's one that unless you're an adult who just absolutely can't get into it, you're never going to roll your eyes at it because, like you said, there's a lot of a good humor for all different ages in it. So he freaks out after being able to understand Pikachu. Nobody else can. Then they go start this investigation into some of the clues that he found on what Tim's father was investigating, and that leads him to the Mr. Mime investigation scene, which was in all the trailers. And I love that scene. And
it's great.
What I really love is that apparently it came out just a few days ago that the producers of the movie asked the Pokemon Company what Mr. Mime was, and they responded they didn't know. Like,
oh no,
that is a perfect answer because really, what is this creepy ass Pokemon? Why does it exist?
There's another Pokemon that like I have questions about, but we'll get there.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I was surprised how dark that scene got too.
Oh, I know.
That was.
This is a PG movie where he's threatening to set this Pokemon on fire.
In mimery, of course. Like,
yeah,
the way they decide to I guess break him in and give him, get the answers out of Mr. Mime is like to mimic his miming technique. And so they mime that they're going to light him on fire with a gas can. Pretty dark stuff.
And one of the things I really love about that is that Pikachu is never right on what he's guessing of the miming. Like he's
really good.
Everything is absolutely wrong. He never gets it right. I thought that was a great little tidbit of it. So after the mine, they go to an underground Pokemon fighting ring where there's Diplo as a DJ. We get some Pokemon fighting. We see a Magikarp evolve into a Gyarados. And we learn that the mysterious purple substance is known as R. In this time, we're also introduced to Howard Clifford, who built Rhyme City, and whose Pokemon partner is a Ditto. Now, this has been something of a controversy in the Destructoid Slack of, do we like Ditto or, oh good God, do we hate it?
The thing about this movie is, at least to me, it introduced some new context to Ditto that I didn't know about. But apparently, they hinted this in Sun and Moon. But Ditto has always been known as the Pokemon that can shift and turn into any different kind of Pokemon and copy their abilities and whatnot. But this movie introduces the concept that, or at least this particular Ditto, can turn into a human.
Yes. And it has that same vacant Ditto face that is just mortifying.
And the black, beady little eyes.
Those eyes are nightmare fuel. That's nightmarish on a regular Pokemon as it is, but when you see it on a fucking human, no.
Yeah.
Burn it with fire. Burn it with that mime fire. I mean,
And like, if you're really into Pokemon, if you're like a hardcore Pokemon fan, one of the cool things that I noticed about that dude's like big office or whatever, he has like these giant like statues of Dialga and Palika, and I think the god Pokemon as well. So
Yes, it's
there's
the
some
one in
really
the
neat
center.
symbolism as well.
Yeah,
So-
throughout this movie, you can. This really does feel like a representation of what a world where Pokemon exists would be like, because there's just so much, Pokemon signage and Pokemon decorations and just everything.
They even reference like the Kanto region and everything, and like about how Mewtwo escaped like 20 years ago from Cinnabar Island and all that stuff. Like they go into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on, I want to touch on one moment in particular. This is when, so after they're at the Pokemon Fight Club and they get arrested, Tim goes back to the police station. The detective shows him a video of his dad's crash and is like, nobody could survive this crash. I have to wonder if they were watching a different video than me, because like the crash that they showed was not anywhere near as catastrophic as nobody could survive makes it sound.
It wasn't like a truly terrible crash, but
I mean, it would probably hurt. He might die, but it was literally just flipping. And I mean, the car didn't even look totally destroyed when it was on the ground.
But prior to that, though, there was also like a big Pokemon battle as well.
Yes, the lone Pokemon battle in this movie.
Well, I would argue there was two. Because at the start of it there, you see a Gengar and Blastoise going at it.
Oh, that's right.
Course,
there's two in the scene. Yeah, that's right.
My boy Gengar wins.
Yes.
So I thought Blastoise for sure would win because like starter love or whatever, but nah, Gengar won. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. And then they have that big fight scene with Pikachu and Charizard, and Tim gets in there and starts stomping out the flame in his tail.
Yeah, which by the way, that could kill it. That's an extreme measure.
Well, he's already set a mime on fire, so
that's true.
He's clearly got Pokemon. He's clearly out for Pokemon blood at this point. So from there, after he finds a video of his dad, or he sees a video of his dad, him, Pikachu, Lucy, and her Psyduck go to investigate the facility from the opening of the film where the Mewtwo was held. They're attacked by Greninjas and saved by Psyduck's headache. I love that, by the way. Just Pikachu trying to get him to have a headache.
And then shortly after that, like some sort of earthquake happens. But prior to that, they find these Torterras, and apparently they're being experimented on to be larger, but they look regular size to them. But then as the earthquakes start to, unravel and, take part, you then find out that like the earth they're standing on are giant Torterras, which, man, that's something.
And I love that scene. I love that entire sequence. First of all, the actual special effects for it were actually pretty good. So everything was really clear and you could see everything that was going on. But then when you see like the eyeballs of these giant Torterras and just how gigantic they are, I mean, that is like world-changing ramifications there. That just kind of, they ignore right afterwards. Like they go back to sleep and that's it. Like what happens when one of those decides to go on a rampage? Because they're probably larger than Rhyme City, which, by the way, it looks like about 5 different cities in one combined. Like I could definitely see Tokyo, Singapore, Hong Kong, like all of these different cities, just buildings picked out of each of them and placed in this fictional city. So I liked it. I like the design of it.
Yeah.
So in the aftermath of this chase along the supersized Torterras, Pikachu is hurt, and a caravan of Bulbasaurs and other Pokemon I don't know off the top of my head lead Tim to where a healing Pokemon can help him. And I love this little scene. I love the little parade of Pokemon that are going through, where it's the Bulbasaurs, it's those little mushroom flying ones. I forgot
the name of those ones. So
yeah, and I like it because it's really quaint, and it's another example of how Pokemon exist in this world. And it really, and that scene kind of pulls true to form when they were talking about how a Pokemon may not understand what you're saying. You can understand how you feel. That really drives that point home because they, able to get it help. Although maybe it was Mewtwo who was manipulating them, because that's who ends up being the healing Pokemon for them, would be the escaped Mewtwo. And then we find out that Mewtwo reveals that Pikachu is helping him. It's captured before it can elaborate.
Yeah.
And then Pikachu leaves to go sing the Pokemon theme song.
Yeah, and we find out that it was actually the Greninjas or whatever that, set the car flying or whatever.
Yeah. So it's nothing to do with Mewtwo, because we learned that Tim's dad actually was trying to help him escape. And when we reach the final act of the movie, I didn't read any reviews before going into this, but I did see on Twitter people were saying that the third act is where it falls apart. Boy, were they not wrong.
It goes places.
It definitely goes places I did not expect. Well, I did expect that Howard Clifford would be the ultimate bad guy of the film, because
it's also where, like, I wrote a note that specifically says Ditto is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, so like we mentioned, or Dan mentioned earlier, Ditto can turn into a human, and you find out that this female assistant of Howard, who has been played by Suki Waterhouse, has been the Ditto this entire time. And so she takes off her glasses, and you just see those soulless eyes looking at just
beady little black eyes. Oh.
Yeah, and she turns in the Ditto turns into several other people, including Lucy. Turns into several of the Pokemon, and then Pikachu comes. And earlier in the movie, when he was having his battle, he couldn't use any of his powers, but now he kind of gets the ability to use them again. So he's able to distract Mewtwo, who Clifford is controlling. And by the way, we've skipped over the ridiculousness of this third act, where Mewtwo uses whatever power this is to combine people with their partner Pokemon. And so
prior to that, it's Clifford taking over Mewtwo, kind of like when Bill turned into a Kabuto or whatever in that one fucking episode from ages ago. It's literally that plot line, but now he then becomes Mewtwo.
Yes.
Something.
And I gotta say, seeing Mewtwo speak, that was probably the only part of the special effects I didn't like in this movie at all.
Because
it was unsettling, yeah. So all of these people are just taken from their human forms and shoved into their Pokemon. I didn't get it. I didn't understand why this was his plan. I just don't understand.
He built this big metropolis with the whole idea that, like, people and Pokemon are hand in hand, all to eventually turn them into Pokemon, I guess. That's a long, stale plan. That is
a long con, my friend.
That is one hell of a plan.
And I just, I don't know. I did find it funny that when people did turn into their Pokemon, they were limited to Pokemon speech.
Yeah.
So when Lucy becomes their Psyduck, she's like, Psyduck.
It's really good.
Yeah, that crossed the point of being dumb to me, and that was just like I don't know why that was the decision they made on the third act of this film, and I don't necessarily agree with it.
That it's certainly where it kind of lost the ball, but I still enjoyed it. I still had a fun time seeing it all kind of pan out and happen.
Yeah. So obviously Pikachu defeats Mewtwo, or distracts him long enough that Tim can remove this little control helmet that Clifford has on his head. Mewtwo goes and reverses all of the pairings that he did, including twist ending, including the one where he combines Tim's dad with his partner Pikachu. And so this entire time, Ryan Reynolds, who is playing Tim's dad, is actually inside of his Pikachu's body. Did you see that coming?
Sadly, yes, because I played the game, unfortunately. The game hints at that heavily, so I suspected as much from the start, unfortunately. But that's because I played the game. But if you're going in blind, I don't think too many people might have seen it coming, but they might have been able to connect the dots once they started realizing what the fucking bad guy's plan was to, combine Pokemon using Mewtwo.
It definitely throws you off with the R mist, the cloud that kind of strikes him before he meets his Pikachu. But as soon as you saw that people were being combined, that's like, oh, okay. So clearly that is his dad in that Pikachu.
Yeah.
Because when they released the R in the Pokemon Battle, the Underground Arena, no one else can hear their Pokemon. That doesn't become an after effect. That doesn't become a plot line. So it's at that point is when I realized, okay, so that clearly has nothing to do with it. And it was only when Ken Watanabe was turned into his, I don't know, the kind of that pink pit bull that he has.
The Snubble, yeah.
There you go. That I realized, okay, so that's where this is going. And then they have that. I didn't really care for the train scene at the end. It seemed silly, but
it was something. The thing that kind of, like, you have to really have a suspension of disbelief. how would he not like hear his dad and go, "Oh, that's my dad," but now he's a Pikachu from the get go. Hey, whatever.
Yeah, that is true. You like, does he just not remember his dad's voice?
Like he didn't see his dad for a long time, so maybe he forgot. I don't know.
Maybe his dad never called, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, how young did his dad have him? Because pretty sure Ryan Reynolds is still in his 30s and Justice Smith
that's
is
the
in his
thing
20s.
too. I was kind of like scratching my head, like, oh wow, him.
This baby's having babies right there.
Yeah.
So that's the movie. But I want to go talk to you about the world building, because this is something I think we both agree on, of just how well done throughout the movie they built this world of Pokemon.
Yeah, like I said earlier, like from seeing the statues of Dadla and Palika in that guy's room and stuff, and like the explanations for the world, making all like how he wanted the city to be about Pokemon being hand in hand. There's no battles allowed and stuff. Like they put an effort to make this at least a believable place within this universe.
Yeah. And what I really love about the film is that first of all, there's no effort to explain to the audience what a Pokemon is. Like I
was shocked by that.
You're just supposed to know, you're just supposed to go along with it, which I love. Most people probably at least have an inkling of an idea of what a Pokemon is, enough that they don't need, a fucking explanation for every single one they see. But then the movie also really follows the in-game rules in this universe. So like when Tim lists Pikachu's movesets, like when he's telling him all the tactics, he lists 4 because that's how many you can use as a Pokemon in the game. They have a joke about Cubone wearing his dead mother's skull on his head. There's the and he breaks
nice symbolism too. That's like the first Pokemon he tries to catch in the movie,
and it's just crying the entire time. Yeah, and that Pokemon breaks free from the ball, which is something that happens in the game. Those moments to me really showed that this was a movie where the producers and the writers and the directors really cared about the source material enough to follow the rules, even if it doesn't make. Yeah, even if it doesn't make sense from a filmmaking point of view. Like, from a film point of view, there is no point in limiting Pikachu to 4 different moves. At all. He should be able to use the entire gauntlet of any move that he uses, but they follow the rules. We just accept that, and it works.
Yeah, it makes me hopeful that if they continue down the road of making more of these movies like this, like live-action adaptations, that they kind of like stick to that rule set and stuff. But can we like wind things back and talk about Ditto again?
Yeah, let's talk about Ditto.
Because Ditto is... Dennis, within the Destructoid community, great moderator.
Yes.
Loving bits, but he insists Ditto is fine. Ditto is perfect. No, man, Ditto is... To anyone else that's seen this movie, they know that Ditto is a mistake. The Pokemon God is an imperfect being, and this is evidence of that, because Ditto is... The context that it can turn into a human has me wondering if this is like a thing throughout this universe, that Dittos can turn into humans. And then it brings up ethical questions of all types. Because if you think about Ditto in the context of the game and how it was more or less just used as a breeding tool to breed Pokemon,
yeah,
there are some dark paths we can go down with Ditto then in this movie universe. And the context that it could turn into a human. Some
non-PG dark paths to go down. Although I don't really understand how you could get it up for a human with that type of face.
Just sunglasses, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love that they just straight up murdered Ditto at the end.
By the way, its death animation was like the T-1000 in Terminator 2. It quickly transformed in all these terrifying things before it fainted or whatever.
Yeah, but I will.
What the hell?
But I will say, in terms of a cinematic fight, Ditto might have been the best choice they had.
Yeah.
Just because it can turn into all of these different Pokemon.
And like I said, if we're going down the road of making more of these films, they could do the rumored like buddy cop movie with The Rock that's flying around out there.
Yeah.
But man, give me a Ditto horror movie. Just make it The Thing. But it's a Ditto. It's these researchers out there, like in the middle of some jungle, trying to research like where Ditto came from. And suddenly, like one by one, like they're kind of disappearing, and then one of them comes back in with sunglasses. We refuse to take the sunglasses off. They take it off. They see the beady eyes. It'd be something.
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines of a horror film, but Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh,
just
everyone's
an
turning
infinite
into
amount
dittos.
of dittos. Just everyone's turning into them. But yeah, no, Ditto is equal parts terrifying and also kind of perfect in the role because, like Clifford's son says, nobody likes your Pokemon. That's kind of true. Like, no one really likes Ditto. And I love how they, with Ditto and they showing all the different Pokemon he can turn into. Again, that's something that keeps in the theme and the spirit of the game.
Yeah.
They do the same with Magikarp. And he just needs a little kick to turn him into Gyarados. And I love that transformation. And I love the look of Gyarados, even though he's only in there just so briefly.
Once again, almost killing Charizard.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
You don't see the flame go entirely out. Man, was I worried there for a second.
That would have been the PG-13 rating this movie was going towards.
Pokemon death.
Yeah. So the world building, I think we both agree is good. It's just the story, and I know that there's been a lot of debate on Destructoid of is this even a decent story?
I know the post you're referring to here.
Yeah, and I don't know if that person posted even more outside of that original post, but it was do we think that because this movie has, I think it's like a 68% Rotten Tomato, I could be wrong there, but it's arguably the best video game movie ever made. And I say that knowing that is such a low bar, an ant could jump over it. Like it's not hard to make something to be considered the best video game movie when all you have to do is make a good movie that is about video games.
This had a level of care that probably 90% of video game movies don't have.
Exactly.
The Sonic movie is like the bipolar opposite that we're going to see in the next coming months. Yeah.
You can tell that the people behind, like we've said this again and again, the people behind the scenes gave a shit about the content that they were adapting. I got to hand it to Legendary Pictures. When they announced that they were going to adapt Detective Pikachu, I didn't know how it would work. I didn't think it could work. I didn't think that it would actually happen. They didn't necessarily blow away my expectations. I think this is kind of just a pretty standard film in terms of the storyline and the dialogue and most of the acting. But I will say that if this is successful enough, I love the groundwork that it lays. Because the designs of the Pokemon, their integration into the world, the fact that it follows the rules of the video game universe without compromising anything. Like you said, if there is that Squirtle and the Rock buddy cop movie, if we get Ditto as the Thing, whatever movies they have planned going forward, including Detective Pikachu 2, which was greenlit back in January. The
which
groundwork
I'm all for now.
Yeah. Although I wonder how they're going to do it with the ending to this film. I'm sure they'll find a way.
They'll find a way to get Ryan Reynolds turned back into a Pikachu.
Yeah. Either way, I'm excited for the future because, this is the quote unquote the best video game movie that has been made, but it's laid the groundwork for a better one and a better one after that.
Who would have guessed when you actually care about your source material, you made a good movie?
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy concept.
Do you have any final thoughts about it?
Like I said, I went in with really no expectation or what to really think. I didn't really watch too many of the trailers. I didn't read any reviews. It made me laugh genuinely. Like, I was surprised how well written it was in terms of the humor.
Yeah.
And yeah, the world building blew me away. Like, even as a hardcore fan, or at least I would describe myself as one because I've played all the games, I've seen a fair amount of the anime. Seeing even stuff like, like I said, the statues of Palika and Diglett there were insane. And like, just that opening scene of walking into Rhyme City for the first time and seeing everything around you, it's mind-blowing.
I'm probably not as big of a no, let me rephrase that. I'm definitely not as big of a Pokemon fan as you, but I do get a lot of the references. And, again, going to respecting the source material, a lot of the stuff in this movie is, kind of a love letter to fans who have been with the series for 20 years. Just all the little in-jokes, all the different appearances of the many generations of Pokemon. From a perspective of a fan and a perspective of a non-fan, I think if there's anything they did perfect, it's that they made a movie that can be enjoyed by someone who either is unfamiliar with it and people who are completely familiar with it. It may not be the best film. It may not be the deepest mystery, but it's 90 minutes of highly enjoyable movie.
It certainly won't evolve the art form. Those types maybe one of that, but
Dan, thank you for joining me.
Yeah.
And that is it for Spoil Sport. We will be back in, I think, 2 or 3 weeks when we will be covering Godzilla, King of the Monsters.